people don't look at training the trunk and applying flexibility training to the importance of making sure you're getting a six-pack abs. Now, what I'm going to tell you is, if your hips aren't moving, you're not going to get great trunk and great ab development. And here's why. In order for our trunk and our abs to respond, they've got to be lengthened. In order for them to be lengthened, our hips and our mid-back, interesting enough, the hips are below the abs and the mid-back is above the abs. Those two areas must be mobile, which means that we must have good thoracic spine mobility, both in extension and flexion, but also in rotation. And we must have good hip mobility in both the sagittal plane, frontal plane, and transverse plane. Well, the band stretching sequence that I've shown you numerous times over the years is a great way to open up your hips so that they can mobilize and move. When the hips can move, now the trunk can be loaded. Here's a perfect example. Let's go ahead and put ourselves in this position. Now, because I can open up my anterior hip flexor on the right-hand side, my trunk can lengthen. Now that I can open up and laterally flex and open up my hip flexor and IT band, my lateral trunk can open up and be loaded. Lastly, when I can rotate and come out of it in this position, now because this hip flexor is going to allow me to rotate away, that's going to allow me to load my obliques and create force. See, and so if your hips are not mobilized and loose and flexible, you're not going to be able to develop a six-pack ab like you want. The same can be said for your thoracic spine and making sure it's mobile. How do you use bands to go ahead and stretch your thoracic spine? Very easy. You just take the band, loop it around, hook your hand through the band, and you've seen me do this several times in the past, and you can just go ahead and work on thoracic, mid-back, and shoulder flexibility training and stretching out and loosening that up, dropping down, and working at just opening up and lengthening your mid-back. So as a result of that, I can use the band to free up my mid-back, which then will allow me to go ahead and use my arms to create different mobilities or different stretches of the trunk, which is going to load my abs and allow them to be trained more effectively. See, it's not just about contracting your abs and training them that's going to make them better. You've got to have the mobility in your hips and the mobility in your thoracic spine and shoulders in order to load those abdominal muscles and make them really become reactive.